Hi, Ridgewood third graders. Here we are again, another week, and this week we're going to go ahead and focus on subtraction. The learning target is we are learning to fluently subtract within 1,000. What am I looking for? Able to use the open number line strategy to fluently subtract numbers within 1,000. This week, the strategy I'm going to focus on is the open number line strategy. Next week, we're going to go ahead and work on another subtraction strategy. Now, some of the parents may be thinking, oh, well, what about the algorithm? Again, in the third grade, we focus on other subtraction strategies, and fourth grade is when they learn to use the algorithm. So I just want to focus on some of these strategies. It gives the children a really good understanding of number sense. Now, the background knowledge for your students to be able to do the open number line strategy is know your subtraction facts. By the end of the school year, you should know your subtraction facts, your addition facts, your multiplication facts, and division facts. It's just going to make math so much easier for you if you know your facts. You're not going to be sitting there counting on your fingers, trying to figure what these numbers are, and it slows you down in your computations and doing the other math. Able to skip count back by tens and hundreds. It's similar to what happened last week when I focused on being able to skip count up by tens and hundreds and seeing the pattern and how it works. And the next one is able to subtract big hops of tens and hundreds. Now, if you take a look at this problem here that I put up, 243 subtract 80. I'm hoping that you're able to do the mental math in your head and know that's 163. Now, if you're not there yet, then this is where being able to look for patterns of tens and hundreds when you go backwards and understanding that pattern. And then understand that when you subtract, you are finding the difference between two numbers. Let me give an example of that. So if I have 5 and I have 10, it's understanding that when I subtract, we're actually trying to find the difference. And that is, of course, if I did 5 plus 5, I'm counting on, it equals 10. So 5, again, is the difference between 5 and 10. I can say that if I did 10 subtract 5, again, equals 5. So we're talking about the difference between 5 and 10. Or when we're talking about subtraction, we're talking about the difference between any two numbers. So it's important for you to know that when we talk about subtraction, we're finding the difference between two numbers. This week's assignments are second grade IXL section J 1 through 2, third grade IXL section D2 and D6, and math worksheets. Now the math worksheets are I think there's about 5 problems on each paper. It's similar to what I did for math last week, but I want you to use the open number line subtraction strategy. That's the practice and the focus. And then finally, I'm going to go over around the room activity to sort of a practice activity that you can do in order to understand and look for patterns when you're counting back by tens and hundreds. And so here's an example of the third grade IXL D2. Now this is an in and out box. So the rule is subtract 80. So in, and then I subtract 80, and then hopefully again, that you're able to do this mental in your head, and we get 445. And the next one is 548. And the next one is 561. Being able to do all this mental in your head. So again, some of your students might have problems with this, but this is available to sort of help practice. Now, when you do some of the IXL, you may have to sit next to your student and help them out. The next one is also seeing patterns here. So hopefully you would know that this would be 5, this would be 50. Again, I'm doing this to sort of help you see patterns of how this subtraction is working when we're finding the difference, and so forth. Now, some of these may be challenging for some of your students. If they are, then that's why I put the second grade IXL to practice. So again, you can talk about the patterns we're seeing here when you're doing the IXL. Next one is the second grade IXL J1. Now again, being able to take big hops, so they should know that this is 200. And doing subtraction in your head, taking big hops, knowing that this should be 30. And then we'll talk about the round the room activity. Now the round the room activity again is like start at a large number. So let's go ahead and start with the number 500. Let's just start easy and go to start at 500. So then we start counting down by 10s, going 10 less. So it would be 490. 10 less, 480. And you keep going and keep going. You can always go down to 0. It depends on how far you want to go back. But again, we're talking about what is the pattern you're seeing. Look in the ones place, all the zeros are to stay the same. And you can see how we're counting in the tens place, 9, 8, 7, and then in the hundreds place, you can kind of see the pattern again. You can also start doing round the room. If we can take a number of 538, and you can start doing. You can do it by going back by 20s. So that would be 508. So again, we can keep going back. So you choose the numbers. Again, it's about looking at the patterns and getting them to think about the patterns and how it looks, so they have a way to figure it out. And now we get to the open number line strategy for subtraction. Now I showed you the open number line strategy for addition last week. It was similar. It's just that we're going backwards. So if I had a number of 348 subtract by 126. Now the things that I want to focus on, first of all, is you can tell right off that if I was going to use the algorithm, that I do not have to regroup. I'm not going to have to borrow. There's nothing. So the idea is, with the open number line strategy, is I'm not really focusing on whether or not they have to borrow or not. So the next thing is that I'm going to take the 126 and I'm going to go ahead and expand it. Now hopefully last week you were able to work on expanded form and all the students were able to see a number and expand it. So we know that's 100 plus 20 plus 6. Now I'm going to start over here at 300. Sorry, I'm not going to start there because I'm going to need some room, so I'm going to erase that. So I'm going to start over here. We're going to put 348. I'm going to start in the hundreds place, and we're going to go ahead and subtract 100. So when I subtract 100, I get 238. Now I go to the tens place, and I subtract 20. Now for most of you, you probably can do a big hop of 20 in your head, so that'd be 208. And then we subtract 6, and you should know that this is 202. So again, let me repeat. So I have a problem 348. I subtract 126. I do expanded form. It becomes 100 plus 20 plus 6. We're subtracting 348. Well, I'm going to say we're subtracting 126 from 348. So then I subtract 100 first. I get 238. Then I subtract 20. I get 208. And then finally I subtract 6, and I got 202. Now I'm going to do one more. I'm going to do another problem. So let me erase this. So let's have a problem of 946. And I'm going to subtract 521. So again, I'm going to take this number here, the smaller number, and I'm going to expand that. So that's 500 plus 20 plus 1. So I'm going to subtract 521 from 946. So I'm going to start with the hundreds, and I'm going to go ahead and subtract. I'm going to subtract 500. So hopefully your student will be able to say it is 446. So we subtract 20. That should be 426. And then finally, we're going to take a hop back. We're going to subtract 1, and it becomes 425. Here we go. So that's the open number line strategy. Now, I'm going to do one more problem here. So I'm going to make this, so this might be a little challenging, this next one for some of the students. So if I have 644, and I'm going to subtract 281. Now, in most instances, you would have to go ahead and do some borrowing, but since we open number line, you don't have to do it. Now I'm going to go ahead and expand 200 plus 80 plus 1. And now I'm going to subtract 600, and I'm going to subtract it from 644. Now most of the students don't have a problem here in the hundreds place. 200, they would know that's 444. Now this is where some students have some difficulty subtracting the 80 because they're having problems taking this big hop back. So what you might have to do is break up the 80 and do 8 tens. And it kind of gets a little messy because you're going to have to go back by 8 tens and have them see the pattern. Because again, for them, it's seeing the pattern and they go, oh, I get it now. Because some of them are still having problems subtracting a big hop of 80. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, 6, 7, and 8. So we're going back groups of 10, and you can start doing the pattern. 444. So it becomes 434, 424. So again, they're starting to see the pattern. So that's the idea, is you want them to start seeing the pattern. So and then you go to that's 424, that's 414, 404, 394, and so on. So they can kind of see the pattern of how you're doing it. So I kind of ran out of room. I was kind of messy here, but hopefully you get the point of what I'm doing. So I'm hoping that you're successful at using the open number line strategy for subtraction. If you have any more questions on how to do it, please email me, and hopefully we can connect up and you'll be able to be successful. So have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.